Hi, my name is Caitlin and I am the owner from Bump to Baby Doula Services. I decided to make this video today to answer the number one question I get in my consultations. That question is, why did you become a doula? The answer is that I had two very unsatisfying birth experiences. When I was 18, after being in labor for a while and feeling the baby fall into the birth canal, the nurse did an internal check and realized that the baby was breech. I had been checked all day long by doctors and nurses, and she was the first to notice. The doctor came in and tried to flip the baby with no success. She wouldn't tell me or my mother or my ex what was going on at this time. It was very painful. My mother said later on that the doctor was almost elbows deep inside of me. It was very painful. After a few minutes of the excruciating pain, she finally informs us that the baby is coming down bum first and that we are going for an emergency C-section. She didn't even ask me if I wanted to try for natural. My ex came into the OR with me, but halfway through, the nursing staff removed him and our child when she was born. I was left alone in the OR. No one would tell me what was going on, and they spoke to me like I wasn't even there. My second child was born in another city, the city I now reside in. It was at a teaching hospital, since that is the only place in our city, besides your home, that allows you to deliver. I thought for sure this would be a better birth. I decided on a repeat section so that my husband could be with me, so that we could send my daughter and stepkids away for a week. We had it all planned out and everything was already set up. I was seeing an OB for possible fertility issues at the time because we had spent over a year and a half trying to get pregnant. When I got the positive pregnancy test, I just chose to stick with the fertility OB doctor instead of going back to my family doctor because I was already being seen and it just seemed easier for me. Unfortunately, I spent half to almost all of my pregnancy fighting this OB doctor on getting my repeat section. She insisted I have a vaginal birth, or a VBAC, claiming I was the perfect candidate. I told her that I had no interest. Finally, she agreed and sent the paperwork in to the hospital. I was due on March 3rd, booked in for my C-section on March 7th. This should have been my first hint that something was up. It didn't matter though, because at the end of January, my water started to leak. I was put on bed rest inside the hospital. There was no room in the NICU for my baby. They told me things like, your child will be sent by helicopter to another city, province, or even to the USA. They scared me into staying in my bed. On day 4, they told me a spot in the NICU had opened up and that I should start walking around and exercising, as being in the bed all day wasn't good for the baby. They sent me for an ultrasound to make sure that there was still enough fluid for the baby. There was. The ultrasound tech also stated that the baby was just about 5 pounds and still very small. After the ultrasound, I was approached by a nurse and asked if I would consider a VBAC since the baby was so small. I told her no and to book me in for my C-section. She told me I had to wait as surgery was completely booked up. The rest of that day and the next morning, I spent hours and hours contracting, and I was told that it wasn't enough, that I had to be in real labor first. And then I was told surgery was booked up, and it seemed like it was excuse after excuse after excuse with them. In total, I was in labor for 26 hours. Around 7 hours left into my labor, I was told all the surgeons were gone home for the night. I was in labor and they wanted to move me to the birth unit. I was in pain. They weren't going to give me my pain medicine unless I was moved to the birthing room. And so finally I agreed. I realized at that moment that I was not having any option but to have VBAC. After I was in the birthing room, I had a nasty nurse. She told me things like to shut up, that I was waking up other patients, that I was scaring other moms that were on the delivery floor, that the pain wasn't that bad because I had an epidural, and that mothers did this every single day, and I had no reason to be scared or nervous, despite the fact that I never had any classes with either of my children. So I didn't even know what I was doing. My husband was sleeping in the corner as he had just gotten off a night shift. And my mom was so shocked at how this nurse was treating me that she was just speechless. She didn't even know what to do. Finally, I told the nurse that I was ready to push, or had felt like I might be ready to push. And she called the doctor in. He was this angry old man who belittled her right in front of me for not making sure I knew how to push before calling him in. He then just walked away. She gave me a lowdown on how to push, but told me I couldn't do anything until a doctor was in the room and to try holding it in. I couldn't wait, and we ended up calling a resident in from the hallway to catch the baby. The NICU came in as I was doing my last couple pushes, and they quickly assessed him and took him away. After I was all stitched up and all that fun stuff was done, they sent me upstairs to the postpartum unit, and they put me in a public room with 4 other women, and it was hard because they all had their babies, and mine was in another floor and in a completely other unit. They had no private or semi-private rooms left. That story took a lot longer than I thought it would, so sorry for that. But because of these 2 terrifying experiences that I had myself, my goal is to stop the hospital staff from treating moms this way. I plan to be their voice when they are unable to speak, help them to have the birth they want, because it's something every woman deserves. I am an advocate. I am their spokesperson. I am their doula.